Hey guys, welcome to the video. John Bodine here with Psych, and today we're going to talk about what I believe is the most mistyped personality types, and along with that, the types that are the hardest to type. It's kind of a dual aim here, but we're mostly focused on, hey, like which of the types are just the most mistyped, the most often, the most misunderstood as far as typing goes. We're going to go through the types here that I think are the most mistyped and a little bit of why. So I have some honorable mentions first. They are three of them: the INTP and the ESFP and the ESTP. The INTP often mistypes as an INTJ, sometimes as an INFJ. Being an extroverted feeler, particularly if they're developed into their extroverted feeling, they can perceive themselves and other people perceive them as being very sensitive to others and wanting to help others, and yes, they do. And so they might test or they might be associated with like an INFJ or an INFP. And then with INTP men, more likely to be mistyped as an INTJ due to being more achievement focused, and having a judgment hero for the INTP makes them test as a judging type, which is, we talked about that in other videos, how the introverts are mislabeled to that end. Now, the ESFP and ESTP, gender is somewhat involved here. I think ESFP men are often mistyped as ESTPs, and we're going to see this theme a bit here as we go through the top most mistyped types, is that FI users, high FI users, basically all the FPs, are particularly in masculine expressions of FI, it doesn't look like how we think FI is. So, for example, someone like Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a popular actor, I believe he is an NFP type, probably an INFP. He's often perceived as either being more of a judging type or more of a thinking type, because FI is not always warm and gooey. It is a filter. It is an evaluation system. It's kind of a discernment and judgment system too that can make them come across more judicial, more like an ISTJ, for example. So the ESFP men in this instance can come across more like a judging type, an ESFJ, or some kind of thinking type. ESTP women especially often are typed as ENFPs, ESFPs. The feeling and thinking crisscrossed with gender often cause the mistypes to this end, but those three types are honorable mentions that you could argue get to the top, but I don't believe they quite crack the top. So starting with number 5, the fifth most mistyped type is the INTJ. Kind of like the INTP, they often type themselves as INPs because of their perception hero, but here particularly I want to talk about INTJ women, okay? Now, INTJ women as a whole are often going to type as a feeling type because it appears that women are more maybe in tune with their feeling functions. But there's another layer here. When we are developed into our lower two functions, as INTJ women often are, developed into their FI child and SE inferior, they use their feeling perhaps more. They certainly seem like it, and this can make them type as all kinds of things. Most likely, in INFJ or an ISFP or an INFP. They seem so much more emotive, so much more moody, and they are moody, as so many types are. So they come across as a feeling type, but they are not. They are an extrovert thinking parent. So INTJs in general, INTJs will often mistype as a feeling type. Yes, men too, as INFPs and INFJs. I've seen a lot of INTJ men mistype as INTPs as well, but the overwhelming side here is FI child throwing the giant wrench for both genders here, making them often mistype as idealists, as the INFs, the INFP, INFJ, and also ISFPs. More so for INTJ women, I've seen them often mistype for ISFPs. Number 4 here is INFPs. Now, for both genders, but particularly men, we talked about FI being a mistyped function for men because it looks like a thinking function or some kind of something else. FI is more calculating than people think. It's not just, oh, my emotions. It is a pretty stern evaluative system of what I believe, what I feel, how that matches with my criteria, because these functions mix and match with their cognitive access, right? So FI users are always going to be using their extroverted thinking standards while they're using FI. So INFP men often mistype as J types, as INFJs, as INTJs, depending on their cognitive development as well. Both men and women will type as ISTJs, sometimes even ESTJs. INFPs can be kind of all over the place because of a misunderstanding of FI mixed with the cognitive development here. They are at number 4. Number 3 is the INFJ. INFJs mistype as a lot of different types for multiple reasons. The first and easiest one is being TI child. They can often mistype as INTPs. I've seen that a lot. And then because of their high perception, they're actually a perception dominant person type, they can mistype as INFPs as well. And then INTJs. I've seen INFJs kind of mistype as a lot of different things. ENFJs, both the NTPs. Still mostly in the intuitive realm, though INFJ women I've seen mistype as ISFPs fairly frequently, along with the INTJ. So they come in at number 3. It's more, I would say that they struggle with having a sense of self, so their identity is kind of, it feels malleable to them and not constant, which makes something like a personality type kind of can be a foreign concept to them because their sense of self is often fluctuating. Okay, number 2, the only sensor on this list, the ISFP. ISFPs are, I think they are one of the hardest types to type in general. They can come across as so many different things. The biggest reason that I see is they come across like an abstract type because of they're often very like tall and lean and graceful. They come across like INFPs. They look like they are walking and gliding around. I think of ISFPs kind of like elves. They have this sort of mystical quality to them, but it's more of the earth. But it looks abstract because mysticism is thought of as being an abstract thing. So ISFPs come across in this deep feeling maturity that they have with FI hero. And then SE parent is not super active. You know, the parent function is very strong, but it's not always active. It's kind of more in the background, which makes them come across more intuitive and more big picture than they are. A lot of ISFPs that you may know, some ISFPs that I know, I mistyped as other types. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that is an ISFP hiding in plain sight. FI in of itself has this mystical element to it that is ripe for mistyping. I think ISFPs are often mistyped. I think there are many celebrities who are typed as NTJs, as INFs as well, that are actually ISFPs, and they can be very, very tricky to type. All right, coming at number 1. This is not even close. I don't think there's anyone in the ballpark, like maybe even in the city limits, compared to how often this type is mistyped or typed as something else, compared to the difficulty of typing this type at times. That is no one else other than the ENTP. They are the master chameleons of humanity as far as I'm concerned. There's a reason why they are great actors, natural actors, and performers of various sorts. They blend in, they become all sorts of shape-shifting things. We talk about the NFJs and the STPs blending in with the environment. The ENTP especially blends in at a deeper, more like fundamental level. The way they blend in is more transformative. They can be so hard to type. There are many ENTPs I know who believe they are NFJs, particularly INFJs. They can test as really anything. They can actually test as ISFPs, as STJs. Mostly, I would say they mistype as NFJs and NTJs based on their development. A lot of ENTPs are developed into their introverted sensing inferior and their FE child, so they test as higher feeling users, particularly higher extroverted feeling users, hence the NFJs. I cannot tell you how many ENTPs I've met that are mistyped to this end. They are there's just so many minefields when you're typing an ENTP. Whenever I type someone, I always have to verify against an ENTP, because there's an off chance that literally any person you meet could be an ENTP. That is how chameleon-like they are. They also often mistype as ESFPs and ENFPs. They can be very entertaining and very kind of cheerful, and not all of them come across as calculating or nearly as calculating as people think the ENTP are. A lot of them are just like entertainers. The jester archetype is like an ENTP, because the ENTP is very, has a lot of intelligence and a lot of ability to criticize the structures of others. The jester archetype, someone who criticizes things, but in this foolish way, in this way that they can kind of get away with saying things, that is most associated with the ENTP. Even though it looks like an ESFP or an ENFP, you have to be so careful with these ENTPs. They are all over the place. The other big reason here that makes it difficult, people don't think that ENTPs can be like performers, like athletes or cops or detectives. They can absolutely be those things. It just depends on them, on so many other factors. They are the most chameleon-like, the most adaptable by far of all the types. It's not close. So you gotta cross-check the ENTP with probably every person that you type. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. If you guys have types that you've mistyped or think are most difficult to type, let me know down below. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.